Good morning and welcome to the Daily Light Devotion. I hope all of you are doing well. And today I'm recording for the 10th of February. I hope all of you had a wonderful Monday yesterday and looking forward to today. Today we're going to look at Leviticus chapter 10, 11, 12 in the Old Testament, seeing Jesus through these three chapters. And in Matthew, we're going to look at Matthew chapter 26, verse 1 to 19. In the Old Testament, we see the theme of holiness, mercy, and God's dwelling with his people, right? And these three verses shift the focus from God's glory appearing to how his people must live in his presence. God is near, but he is also holy. These chapters teach us approaching God casually is dangerous, yet approaching God rightly brings life and restoration. And in these chapters, we see Jesus very clearly. Leviticus 10, Nadab and Abihu offer unauthorized fire before the Lord. They approach God on their own terms, not his. Fire comes from the Lord again, but this time it brings judgment. Jesus approaches the Father perfectly. I always do what pleases him, John 8:29. So God is not worshipped by creativity alone, but by obedience. Um, Leviticus 10:3 says, God says, among those who approach me, I will be proved holy. Holiness reveals God's character to the people. Jesus reveals the holiness of God without destroying us. The Word became flesh, full of grace and truth. John 1:14 again. In Jesus, holiness and mercy meet. Leviticus chapter 11, God gives law about clean and unclean food. These laws teach Israel discernment and separation. God desires a people who reflect his holiness in everyday life. Jesus makes the unclean clean. Nothing outside a person can defile them. Matthew 7:15. Sorry, Mark 7:15. Holiness brings in the heart not just behavior. There's a change inside. There's internal change. Leviticus 12, after the childbirth, purification offerings are required. This reminds us that sin affects all humanity from birth. Yet God provides a way back into worship. Jesus was born under the law to redeem us from it. God sent his son, born of God, born under the law, Galatians 4:4. Jesus enters our brokenness to restore us. Leviticus 10 to 12 teaches us God is holy, humanity is broken, and God still provides. This is what is that is what that is who Jesus is. Through him we have confidence to approach God. Hebrews 10:19. So what are some of the key takeaways? God is holy and must be honored. Obedience matters in worship. Sin separates, but God restores. Holiness is inward, not just outward. And Jesus makes us clean and brings us near. So these verses remind us God does not lower his holiness standard. He lifts us to his standard. Right? Through Jesus, we are not destroyed by God's presence, we are transformed by it. So let us worship him in reverence, obedience, and grateful truth. That's what it basically is. And these three verses, that's what the people of Israel were, the Jewish people were given, and these were commanded by God. Matthew chapter 26, 1 to 19, the theme is willing sacrifice, costly devotion, and God's perfect timing. Matthew 26 opens with the final chapter of Jesus' earthly ministry. The cross is no longer approaching, it is planned. So in this verse, we see human plotting, heartfelt worship, and divine preparation. And through all of this, we see Jesus willing and purposefully moving towards, to the cross. Verses 1 to 5 in Matthew 26, there's a plot by the religious leaders to arrest him and kill him, Jesus, quietly. They fear the crowd, but not God. Yet their plans cannot change God's, plans. And Jesus is fully aware of what is coming. The Son of Man will be delivered to be crucified, Matthew 26:2. The cross was not an accident, it was God's plan. Verses 6 to 9, a woman pours expensive perfume on Jesus. Others see it as waste, Jesus sees it as worship. Here, the act is extravagant, personal, and sacrificial. So Jesus is worthy of our very best. She has done a beautiful thing to me. Matthew 26:10. True worship is often misunderstood by others. Matthew 26 verses 10 to 13. Jesus defends the woman, right? He says her act will be remembered wherever the gospel is preached. Jesus values sincere devotion. What is done for Jesus is never forgotten. Verses 14 to 16, Judas agrees to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. A heart that values money over Christ becomes dangerous, right? Jesus is betrayed but not surprised. Being close to Jesus does not always mean being committed to Him. Verses 17 to 19, we see the Passover. Jesus carefully prepares the Passover meal, right? And even as betrayal approaches, Jesus remains in control. Jesus is the true Passover lamb, so He serves, everything is there, but there is no lamb in that first Passover meal because He is the true lamb, right? Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. 1 Corinthians 5:7. Jesus prepares for the salvation even while facing suffering. So we see the bigger picture here is plotting, worship, betray, and preparation. Every moment moves towards the cross and is planned not by force, right, but Jesus moves ahead by obedience. So the key takeaways is Jesus is willing to walk towards the cross. God's plan cannot be disrupted. True worship costs something. Betrayal begins at the heart level, and Jesus is the perfect Passover lamb. So I want to end by encouraging you. Jesus gave Himself knowingly and willingly. As we follow Him, we may choose devotion over convenience, faithfulness over compromise, and obedience over fear. I hope these verses and this devotion encouraged you today. Have a wonderful Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.